On this episode of the Wealth Alchemist Podcast, I have Marisa Imon on the show with me. She and I talk about our journeys in overcoming the debilitation of bipolar tendencies in our lives and the gifts of, I love how she calls this, emotional intensity. Whether you have ever been diagnosed bipolar or you're just a human on this planet that has some emotions, this show is for you. We also share how to utilize this emotional intensity for becoming an even more amazing manifestor in your life with intention. This is such a beautiful conversation that I wish I had heard these things years ago when I was trapped on the roller coaster of ride of my life. And so I really do hope that you enjoy this show. Hello and welcome to the Wealth Alchemist Podcast. My name is Carrie Norley, and I am so excited to have Marisa Imon or Imon. We're having a conversation.
No one knows.
No one knows. She's on the show with us today. This is a podcast we've been trying to, I think it's been almost a year that we've been kind of talking about getting this together. And she is a creative entrepreneur, award-winning composer, and creator of hundreds of meditations featured by apps and brands, which collectively have millions of listens every month. Boom. Her music has been used in a national ad campaign for Ollie Vitamins and the show Lucifer on Netflix. Very cool. She's the international Amazon best-selling author of the book Super Intense, How Working with Your Emotional Intensity Makes You a Total Superhero, and host of the Unconventional Meditation podcast Incandescent, which is an awesome podcast, and you should definitely go and check it out. Thank you, my dear, for being on the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Me too. I'm so excited for our conversation as my emotionally intense sister.
I know, right? So when Marisa and I first met, I found out, and this is what we're going to dive into today, that Marisa has quite the story around overcoming the life that bipolar can suck us into in a negative way and
That's
making
a good
it
way
a positive.
To phrase it. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
overcoming the life of it, because it's like I still live with it, but it doesn't control me in my whole life like it used to. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember at some point you said it's a gift. And I was like, at the time when I heard that, it did not feel like a gift to me in any way, shape, or form.
I get that. Oh, do I get that?
I'm like, okay, Marisa, I need to know more about this thing being a gift because it's not feeling like a gift right now.
And it can't when we'll get to this, but I'll let you finish before I dive into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you can start actually, because what I want you to do is start to just explain what's your journey, and I know we have a lot to talk about. So the abbreviated version of where you were to to where you've had to overcome this. Cause I know it was and I say this because for those of my listeners who are listening know that I have chosen this road to overcome things naturally. To start with, Marisa had the medication road first. And I've said to people on the show, however you can do it, whatever freaking works, whatever gets you through the day. Right. And so I love though hearing how you moved from one into the other. So go ahead and start to give us a little bit of a journey about what happened for you.
Yeah, well, the medications were involuntary also, by the way. So I describe living with bipolar as being a boulder on a really thin path. And on the left, I could easily drop into suicidal emotions and thinking. On the right, I could easily drop into euphoria. And it's like I have to roll down this path just right, staying balanced, staying centered, because as soon as I start to sway one way or the other, because I am an intense feeler, it just keeps going real fast until I completely crash.
So it's like a boulder that just knocks down the road. You're like, I can't
Everything.
stop the rolling.
Yes. Especially growing up. So it's so funny because my dad says that if he had to choose one word to describe me as an infant, just an infant, he would say intense. And pretty much that never changed in my childhood. And I always just felt everything so strong. I would cry if I accidentally stepped on an ant outside, which, as you can imagine, would happen all the time. It's really hard to avoid. So I had a little ant nursery in my bedroom, and my little heart was always just broken. I would go to bed at night like a little dramatic 10-year-old martyr, and I would pray to some god, because we were kind of raised to believe what you want. There's all these different religions. Like culturally, we were Jewish, but my parents were both very open-minded and told me to just pursue whatever interests me and introduced me to like Taoism, Buddhism, all sorts of things. And so, but as a kid, I was just confused. So I'm like going to bed, I'm like, whatever God there is. Like, will you take my life to save all those starving children I'm seeing on infomercials late at night with their distended bellies? And because I never slept as a kid, which is also a symptom of bipolar, I would catch those like late night infomercials where it's like, send money now to save these children. And because I was so sensitive and impressionable, I would just sob and like wish someone would take my life if it would save all those other kids. And this feeling was just so strong. And the first year I ever had long-lasting depression was when I was 10. And my dog, who was my best friend, died in my arms. He had a nice natural life, but it was so traumatic. I stopped talking to humans. And the advice that I eventually received was like, just smile. Like, you got to put on a happy face and eventually you'll feel better. And nowadays, I think that it's becoming more and more the norm where you're allowed to feel whatever you feel. But for a lot of us growing up, that was not the case. And it wasn't meant to be a bad thing. It was everyone's best attempt at helping to say, hey, just smile and fake it till you make it. You'll eventually be happy. And so I tried that. That doesn't work. But I tried so great because I got a whole bunch of dental work done, got this giant smile on my face, got voted friendliest in high school. Like everyone who knew me, not super well, but like well enough. My closest friends knew that I was a roller coaster. But those who weren't that close in my life to me, just like friends, not like best friends, but just friends, thought I was the happiest person ever.
I know that feeling.
And I can what's interesting is that as an intense feeler, I often am the happiest person in a room. But then I can also be like
saddest.
The absolute yes. Like, all right, like I am so quick to go into, all right, kill me now. Like just so quick. And it's funny because when I'm not there, I don't get it. I'm like, how could I ever feel that way? But I feel that way very easily. And I know from experience, like I just need to wait out that feeling. But when you're younger and you haven't had a lot of life experience yet, having that feeling so often is so crushing. And there were many times when I, wasn't sure I would wait through the feeling and put some plans in place. And I contemplated taking my life so many times. And then when I was 19, it escalated into bipolar type 1 with mania. And I didn't know yet. At this point, I'd been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADD, bulimia, and insomnia. We can talk about any and all of those things. And then it kind of spiraled into a manic episode with rapid cycling where I was either completely euphoric or completely suicidal in like a 2-hour span, like completely different. And I believed I was either a superhero here to save the world or an evil villain sent to destroy the superhero version of myself, which like joke's on her. They're not in the same room at the same time. But she did not realize that. And I was like listening to aliens that were talking to me through headphones that weren't plugged into anything. At night while my roommate slept, I'd stare into a mirror and watch my face change shape. And a lot of this I realized later though was intuitive gifts that I didn't have any context for. It got overblown. So like seeing auras became really distracting to me. It wasn't everything. And I would tell the doctor it was a thickness in the air because I truly didn't have a sense of what it was. I just thought it's a thickness in the air and it's very distracting. And
it's so interesting. I have a friend whose mother was put into, and I want to say brother too, very good friend of mine, who's was put into mental hospital because they were hearing voices. And so they thought that she was schizophrenic. They thought they were schizophrenic, which would make logical sense from a medical diagnosis. Yeah. My friend is a psychic. She was on psychic TV to so be like, look, I hear voices, but that somehow now I get paid to hear these voices, right?
And that's what bothered me so much at first was that I was told by the doctors, like, well, if you were religious or spiritual, then this wouldn't be considered insanity. Like some of the things later, some of it really was. Like I had no idea where I was. The whole, like it really especially because I stopped sleeping for like a couple weeks. Like anyone's going to lose touch with reality doing that. And that's kind of a symptom of being manic, is not sleeping. So it just exacerbates the whole situation. And I was released into my parents' custody after a dear friend like found me with no idea where I was or what I was doing and called my parents. And that's when I went through a bunch of testing. I remember the doctor suggesting it was schizophrenia, and the look on my dad's face. My parents are so loving and sweet. They're like two of my best friends. So it was crushing to see how scared that made my dad. And so I knew the gravity of the situation. I knew I had to take it seriously. So I was like, whatever you need to do, like, just give me medications. Like, that's all they suggested anyway. I never met a doctor who was like, you could live well with bipolar without medications. Never once did I ever meet a doctor that said that, until several years after I'd already started a lifestyle on that path. I met one who was like, maybe it's possible, but like it was, and who knows, maybe I was just a magnet for those people because I didn't believe it was possible either. I knew so little. I had so little self
awareness,
like faith. Yeah, self-awareness, self-faith. Like I didn't believe in myself. I thought I was at the mercy of life.
Mental health, right?
Yeah. So the medications that I eventually landed on, they call it a cocktail. How adorable. I like how also offensive. Like you're working with the population of people who are more likely to be struggling with addiction, and you give the combination a cute little nickname of cocktail. Like someone, whatever doctor came up with that had a very dark sense of humor. But that's what it was called. And so I think it was like 13 pills a day of 7 different kinds. And, like one to wake me up, one to put me to sleep, one to help me focus, one to keep me from hallucinating, like all these things, one to keep my mood stable, all these different things where if I missed a dose within like 15 minutes to an hour, I would feel the withdrawal effects. And so I went from being at the mercy of my moods to being at the mercy of my meds because there was so much to deal with all throughout the day. And I was like, I know it saved my life because I really had lost touch with reality and it got me back to reality. And I'm so thankful for that. But this can't be what the rest of my life looks like. I can't be in fear of my moods or in fear of my meds. So that's when about 8 years ago,
such a big thing with that, like in fear. And I want to say, because I wanted to like kind of interject right here. Please. For anyone who's listening, that even if you're not bipolar, like if you haven't been classified, like even I've said it on the show, like I've never been officially diagnosed. I can just tell you that by every other person that I've worked with, all therapists, all people that I'm working my brain stuff have all said, Gary, like, yes, like if you were to go in, I'm sure they would tell you, right? You have every symptom, it's all going on. Right. And so we're working just the same thing. Like, does it matter? No, it just matters that we work with this. And the reason that I say this is because even if you're not diagnosed bipolar, even if you don't even associate with this, like emotional intensity happens for pretty much all human beings, especially if you're a woman.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, men, I would say if men were allowed in the patriarchal society that we live in, were taught to have a healthy relationship with emotions, they would probably feel the same too. But it takes a little bit longer of a journey for some of our men in the world to like hanker into emotional intensity in the way that I think we can like swing these ways so fast. It's a very, and I say that because like, listen into this because it's what I learned so much about managing, I would say, bipolar, because it is a constant. It's never like, this was something that I really had to drop into, is it's not like it just goes away. Like these symptoms don't just leave like magically, like they're going to be gone. And I've even watched people on medication, like people I know that are very close to me and family and close to me that are on medication for this, and they still do it. I still watch the swings. I still watch the symptoms happen. I still like medication doesn't all of a sudden just solve the problem either.
No,
right?
Because then they up you to another dose.
And then you feel
never
more numb,
ending,
but it's never, and you don't have, and it doesn't necessarily give you
at least that was my
mechanisms.
personal experience.
Right. Yeah, totally. And so I say this because it doesn't matter what, I'm going to say like what spectrum you are in this, we all as humans have emotions that we get to learn to be with. And I think it's the biggest, like if we, I know you're going to get into this part of the gift, but one of the biggest gifts for me has been I'm okay to feel this. And I'm not wrong for having intense rage right now. I'm not wrong for having intense ecstasy right now. I also don't have to make it mean a damn thing. And it doesn't have to consume my life for months on end, which is where it could have gone in the past. Right?
100%. And I think that's the big changer for me was shifting from these emotions are quote unquote bad, as I was told my whole life, not necessarily explicitly, but by telling me you're too intense, you need to medicate. Like that's also getting in deep into my psychology of being like, you're not good enough if you're feeling intense emotions. So there's a lot of rewiring. But the second that I started to shift into, okay, all my life, I've run away from feelings of depression, despair, anxiety, and I try to hide them, act like they're not there. What if instead I simply turned around and looked at them with love? And when I did that, I realized they were all just wounded parts of me wishing I would have hugged them. Just like they're like, just like sad, crying babies, because they're all just parts of younger me who every time she felt that way, was told, no, you gotta smile now, act like it's okay, and didn't know how to handle the emotions. So now they're just like trapped in there. And so it was a almost like having a tea party with all these different parts of me that had felt that way for so long and didn't get a chance to express it. And then in loving them and accepting them and letting them feel what they feel, they didn't last the months on end that they had lasted when I tried to run away from them and hide them. It's like they had their voice, they had their space, and they moved on. But I have to do that every single day. Like if I start ignoring a feeling, then it's going to escalate, it's going to snowball really quickly. So
It's so funny because yesterday I was doing a recording and this alarm went off today. So like you guys are listening, the recordings, it's the alarm went off to ask me, how do I feel? And it's so funny because it's exactly that. Like it's that check-in of like, Carrie, do you need to deal with your emotions right now? I mean, we do, right? Like, but what is it that you're feeling? Because
I love that.
Because right, we can get lost, like we can forget. And then all of a sudden, especially when you live in the world that we do, if you don't check in enough, they get so overwhelming that I can't even decipher. I'm like, I don't even know. I just feel like a train wreck right now and I got it all going on in my body, right? And so of course, then we can learn how to like deal with that too. But what I'm learning is the more that I check in throughout my day, like how am I feeling? Do I need to do something for myself right now? And I almost call it like this, almost like a micromanaging of our experiences so that I am the one who is, I don't even want to say I'm in control of it because I'm not, but I'm in awareness of it so that I can do something about it. If it's like, actually, I have some like stuff in here that's frustration that I need to get out. How can I do that? Is now on a podcast the appropriate time? No, but is it?
It could be. I mean, I'm open, but
we don't need to I'm not in a ragey mood. I'm loving this. But you know what I mean? Like we can
I support all your feelings though, if you ever are.
Thank you. And I also love that you said that because I know for me, one of the things that has been such a thing to overcome is to be like, I have been shamed for these emotions, right? And so much time, if you are, and again, it's not even about bipolar, like if you are an intense feeling human being, right? And you have these intense emotions, it can be really a lot. And I get it. And I really do get that it can be a lot for the people around us, but that doesn't make me a bad person.
Right. So you've touched on two really important things I want to address. One is that you brought up the next level of the work that I haven't even gotten to the base level of work I've done yet, but it's 2021. Let's just dive in because you touched on it. And then two, the whole thing about how we're not in this alone. I'm going to start there because I still am healing like old Marisa, like young Marisa, I guess I should say, from the past, feeling like, who are you to feel this way? Your life is so good. Don't burden anyone with your feelings. Like, keep that to yourself. And I realize I still have healing to do in that because I went through a really painful, like that boulder rolled all the way down into the suicidal feelings just about a month ago. I was there for a couple days, which is the longest it's been in years. And which is beautiful also, by the way, because like
Oh yeah.
it used to last months. But I I've reached out to friends to help me, and one of them was like, actually, I'm sure I can give her a shout out. We all love Tamar Medford and Rebecca Packard. I actually reached out to both of them and did some emotion code with Rebecca, but Tamar had a great point. She was like, someone once advised her, like, you never know if you sharing what you're going through isn't exactly what the person you reach out to needed to hear that day to help them with something that they were dealing with or to get them out of their head. If there's a reason why we've attracted interacting with each other, that person was a match for it. You're not going to line up with someone who's not a match for receiving the emotions that you're feeling in one way or another. And one of the very first things in like the rudimentary basic steps of how I started to shift from being heavily medicated and at mercy of moods or meds into being more like a boulder down a steady path most of the time, but not all the time, was letting my support team know the signs and symptoms that are me going way too far off path. Because it used to be that I liked going too far off path. It gave me all this energy and I felt amazing. I learned how to code a website. This is back in like 2005 in like 24 hours, which was insane. Like I had all these quote unquote abilities is what it felt like when I would be euphoric, and I didn't
The
want to stop
manias,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I did not want to stop it and I wanted to hide it. But then eventually I realized that's not what I want. So I got my team in place of loved ones. Back then, when I still was like going into an office, like letting my closest coworkers know that I was about to embark on this journey. And it took me 3 years of slowly going off of medications while doing the basic work. But now, the higher level work that you just touched upon is like reprogramming my mind, my brain, to allow myself moment to moment. And I'm not perfect at it, but throughout the day to be like, what does my body need? What do my emotions need? How can I, do I need to go get a sip of sunshine outside? Do I need to breathe that in? Do I need to have a glass of green tea? Like, what is it that I need right now? And letting myself follow that, whatever it looks like. And honoring myself through that. If it's, I'm feeling really anxious, I feel like everyone hates me or whatever that emotion might be, instead of being like bad emotion, how dare you, be like, hey, come on in. Hey, there's sweet emotion. Let's look at this and let's learn from it. Because here's the thing, we are all boulders on a path. Yours and my path is a bit thinner and steeper on either side, but we're all that. And what our emotions are that are, you know, the emotions below neutral. I don't like to call them negative because people think that means bad, but the emotions below neutral are like rumble strips on the side of the road, just letting you know, hey, you've gone off track. Your path is one of love, peace, prosperity, well being. That's the path. We're here to tell you when you've gone off course. All those quote unquote lower emotions are just like, hey, you're starting to go off the cliff. And if we can listen to them and work with them before it becomes, oh my God, we're all the way at the bottom of the cliff and everything's horrible, then it's so much easier to get right back on that path. And so learning to listen to the second that we start to feel anything below neutral and get curious, love it, learn from it. Okay, if I think that I'm doing a bad job at X, Y, and Z, well, that just means I desire to have an amazing outcome. So let me focus on that desired outcome, because we're never bothered by something we don't care about. It's just letting us know we care about that. Let's focus on that instead. And that's the power of emotional intensity, because it makes us strong manifestors. For a long time, I would
Mm.
manifest pain,
Mhm.
despair, discomfort. But when we can work with that intense emotion and reframe it towards our desired outcome and feel the freedom of wanting without resistance, of wanting without fear, then our strong, intense emotions are like a hot air balloon. We're putting on the hot air and we're going in the right direction super fast.
Emotional intensity helps us to become amazing manifestors.
And it's
Ooh,
not even that it helps us, because it could hinder us too.
right,
The stronger we feel about something, the more that's all we can see. So for when I
right. Mhm.
drop down into those suicidal times, all I can see is how
Darkness.
horrible I am, how worthless I am. There's nothing else I can possibly see, because that's not what I'm a match for. It's a slower climb back up. And that's why, first of all, it's okay that it is. There's nothing wrong with it. We can learn from it. But then once we do get back up into a more like neutral path, that's why honoring every little tiny lower emotion as quickly as possible is so important. So we don't keep manifesting those things in the lower end of the emotional scale.
I love it. It's interesting because when I asked you, and I'd love for you to talk about this too, but I asked you about like, cause you talk about how it became your, a gift, right? How this has become a gift for you. When I hear you say that, for me, the gift in this, like, and I haven't really considered it until this moment, the gift in it for me, it is a connection, right? I think it can go both ways. The gift, I mean, the agony of it, and to begin with, when we're unaware of it, is the disconnection, right? I mean, that's ultimately what, when we swing from these places, we're so disconnected from
That's
anything
why it
that we get,
hurts.
right?
Mhm.
Like we get taken into the depths of shit, we get taken up into the highs, but we're so disconnected and oftentimes looking outside of ourselves for the reassurance, for the love, for the da 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 da, for all these things, for our needs to be met, that we end up falling and swinging into these different places. And the looping thoughts, right? This was something that was fascinating to me too, right? Like the looping thoughts that tell you all the nasty ass things
Yeah.
that happen in your head and that we can't get out of our head. Again, that's a disconnection, because when I started connecting to it, I was like, oh, I hear you. You don't need to talk to me anymore. Right.
Yeah.
I know that thought. I hear what you're saying to me, but actually that's not empowering me right now. So you can go and sit over there. And I'm starting to learn, right? What are my ways of of having those not control me anymore and being able to choose a different way. And so in that, like, the empowered place of this is I am deeply connected to all my feelings, all my thoughts, all these things, because if I do not connect into myself, it takes me somewhere that I don't want to go.
And
Oftentimes,
those
right?
emotions don't those thoughts, those as Raw Goddess calls them, our greatest hits that are on repeat,
Ah, yes, says the musician.
yeah. So it's like what I like to do is take them by the hand, because it's always from a broken, not broken, that's a misnomer, but it's always from a time in my childhood where I felt hurt and I didn't feel heard. So now that voice is coming up and it's becoming a greatest hit. And so I let it know, hey, I love you so much. And it's like I take it by the hand and go, that was then. Let's look at where we are now. And it's like I show her, hey, here's the truth. We are loved. We are supported. We are encouraged. You're safe to feel. It's like I'm taking all those things from my past and becoming their mother, which I really am. And I hold them and I show them the light and let them know, dear darling, look at how much has changed. And then that way, when they come up again, I'm like, oh, sweetie, like I can giggle with them, like, oh, you cutie. No, 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 remember? And then I show them again, here's what's real.
Here's
And for
what's true now.
anyone who's listening who knows like hiking experiences, there's the deer paths where deer go through the woods and it's so thin you can hardly see the path. And then there's a logging trail where it's wide and logging trucks go down it and it's so easy to walk down. My brain was like full of logging trails of self hatred thoughts and tiny deer paths of self love. But the more I did that work of like, oh, sweet self hatred thought, like, let me hold your hand, let me love you, and let you know what's true. The more we went down those deer paths that eventually became the logging trails, and the logging trails of self hatred eventually became little tiny deer paths that I find myself down every now and then. And then I'm like, oh, we fell off track. Whoops.
I'm gonna take myself back over
Made a
here.
wrong turn. I do get lost easily.
I know.
Just a quick message for you about a new mastermind called Unplug that I am inviting you into. There is an amazing buzz around the crypto space, and with that comes a whole new language and an education to be able to take advantage of early adoption as we move into this amazing space. So many people think that you have missed this early stage, but we are still there and you still most definitely have time to get in and dive deep. This is why I created Unplug. I know many of you want to learn to take the cash you are making and get it working for you so that you can create another form of income and eventually financial freedom. I also know that there are many of you out there that realize the financial system is corrupt and not designed for us, and you want a way out. The crypto space is amazing and also a learning curve. If you don't know what you're doing, you can run into all kinds of mishaps that will lose you money. So if you want to accelerate your wealth creation and learn how to decentralize yourself and your biz so that you can become sovereign, Unplug is for you. I will show you how to get returns that range anywhere from 5% up to, I had 61% compounding interest in one of my accounts just a few weeks ago. This is not always available, but it definitely exists. We will be learning about NFTs, DeFi, privacy, and learning how to make smart investment decisions and getting your biz, crypto and Web 3.0 ready and more. There are so many amazing people already signed up and getting moving, and the caliber of people coming into this space is amazing. Not just the participants, but also the guests I have lined up. It's not just about me. This is a mastermind where everyone will learn and grow in this new space together. If you are ready to leap into the new wealth and break free of the banking system, this is for you. Please message me on Facebook or Insta for more details. Our first call begins on the 26th of January. If you are hearing this message after that, please do still reach out and let's see how I can support you to get into the crypto space. And now back to the show.
Again, that's why the connection, right? Like we can, it's so easy. Like, I mean, let's be honest. It's a world of distraction everywhere we go. So it's easy. It doesn't matter, to get distracted. Okay. So I kind of want to sum this into to bring back to the story. So ultimately, I know that you ended up going through this amazing process that brought you from being fully reliant on medical drugs to use pharmaceuticals to be able to cope with your day to now. I don't think you're on any.
No, but I mean, I'm not I've never been anti-medications. It saved my life.
Saying,
and I take ibuprofen and stuff like that when I need it. So, but yeah, nothing for bipolar.
Amazing. So this is what I wanted to come into. So I talked about what I can see what is my gift now. Please share, so how did this become your gift?
Well, it's funny because I didn't realize this until right before we recorded that one of the ways it was my gift is that it forced me to focus on me. I had been in nonprofit work that I loved. I oversaw a youth program. I loved the youth. I loved the staff. But I wasn't taking care of myself and my emotional needs. Well, actually, I just started to, and I knew I needed more time to myself every day. And because I recognized that to do this well, I basically would become my own full-time job, I did everything I could to get to that point. And so that's kind of an aspect of it that's a gift because I don't know if the urgency would have been on me to make the shift sooner, but because it forces me to do exactly what you were saying, I can't disconnect. I have to stay connected and feel, because when I do disconnect, I'm a boulder rolling downhill real fast. So, so that gift of forcing me to have to be connected to me, because otherwise I can get so out of hand so quickly. It's been a gift in terms of really requiring more direct attention inward, direct connecting inward. And it also helps me with guidance. I can feel really easily. I'm still learning to always listen to it, but I can feel when something doesn't feel right because I feel things. So it's also helpful for guidance. Every time I have anxiety, I know it's just because I strongly desire a positive outcome. So it helps me keep reshifting, keep refocusing on what I want, because the pain just means I have a strong desire for its opposite. And that is the gift. If you know what you don't want and you have the anxiety and pain from that, then beautiful. Thank you, pain and anxiety. You've helped me gain more clarity on what I do want.
So beautiful. It's interesting that you put it in this perspective, but I have said because my career in this industry started in massage work. And so for me, I'm very much into the embodiment. And from there, I would help my clients all the time around overcoming even intense chronic pain that they'd seen every practitioner. And I was just yeah, but what's your body telling you? Right? Because nobody actually asked this question. Right? What's your body telling you? Like, because I can't make, if you've been through, and like sometimes, and I get this, like, there's a mix. And, I think ultimately for me, everything comes from our mental, spiritual, emotional aspects, and then lands into the body for the body to tell us something. Right. And then we create this sign, or this quote unquote symptom, right? For the body to speak to us so that we listen. And we don't listen. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse until you cannot not listen anymore. Right. And then I have this chronic pain.
It's like the body knows. Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I love that we're both just so excited.
So I'll finish though really quick. And so I was like, to me, like when you're saying to me, and I, it's funny because I don't really know that I associated it in the same way with this, which is very interesting. So very interesting moment here. But like, it's that same concept that like the anxiety, I think for so long I did ignore it, or it was something I didn't like, it just was there constantly, and now, like you said, like it comes in and I'm like, ooh, hello. Oh, hello, friend. I feel you. What are you telling me today? What do I need to do? Because generally you do not lead, like what I have learned after having lived with it in my body for years and years and years and years and years, more than, not. I was like, wait, I actually don't need to have you in my body all the time. You're telling me something. What are you telling me? Is it that right now in this moment, I need to take a breath? Is it because I'm not paying attention to this thing? Is it because someone's doing this to me? Is it because da, 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 da? Where am I not taking care of myself right now that you're speaking to me? And it's a really interesting thing. Like when we can start to build that relationship with our bodies, they're constantly telling us things. And so often we want to ignore them or take the pill or, and again, when I'm not adverse to having some pain meds for my headaches, I can tell you that. But even then, like, even before I take it, I'll be like, so what are you saying to me right now? Right? Like, why am I creating this for myself right now? Like, I still have a conversation with it. And then sometimes I'm like, and thank you. I do not need to go down the hole of that horror migraine that's going to take me into a black hole. Thank you, Tylenol.
Exactly. And who cares about all the Tylenol you take in the world if you don't listen to the message, because as you said, it will progress. And it's so funny you mentioned the massage, because I just got one yesterday, and there's always been a spot in my lower back that makes me giggle when someone massages it. And I realized I had a low back injury when I also depression that same year. And it was kind of a silly accident. I put a exercise ball in my parents' bed and jumped on it, and then like flipped off and landed. And my mom, who's so cute, but like at 10, I already was comfortable with her saying super morbid things because she's like so peppy, but she'll be like, you're going to die any minute. Like she runs upstairs and she's like, Marissa, don't move. You're paralyzed. And like, I was, even at 10, I was laughing, even though I was in so much pain. I was like, this is over the top. But I realized like laughter was a lot of how I got through a lot of the pain that I didn't know how to process. And I told that story while he was massaging the part that made me giggle, and the giggles went away. It was like, it was like little Marissa finally got recognized, that like she was holding on to some tension there in a way that was manifesting as laughter, which is really interesting how the body holds on to things. But I held up my finger while we were talking earlier, my pointer finger on my left hand, which is my dominant hand. I've had a sore knuckle for a while, and I like to get curious, like, body, what are you telling me? And I haven't been able to quite understand. Like I'll try to receive what the guidance is, but I think I've been questioning if it was accurate guidance. And then I was chopping sweet potatoes and chopped off, I don't know, close your ears if you're a little squeamish, but I'll be okay. But I chopped off part of the tip of my finger, and I was like, okay, clearly you're not going to let me go. Like the Healy was helping my joint a lot. I could hardly bend it, and now I can bend it almost all the way because of the Healy. But my body was like, you're not getting off so easy. We're trying to tell you something. And then I realized it has to do with balance. And what happens is that the better I get every year at like living well with this, the less my body will let me get away with things I used to do. The less it's like, you know better now, so you can't go back to ignoring a second of anything. Like
hyper acute, hyper intuitive.
Yeah, like the more I move along this path, the less I can get away with ignoring how I feel. And I've realized this summer I had a lot of energy, and I had like, I was like, I'm working on a documentary, I'm working on a show, I'm working on a new business, I'm working, like I had all these ideas and I was loving it. And I didn't recognize that as the boulder rolling down to the right, traveling towards mania, because it didn't get that far. But I realized when it swung so low the other way, just how out of balance I'd allowed myself to become by the lure of like feeling all that energy. And so, really, I discovered that this finger ties to balance. And that was the message for me, is like, the more you get balanced, the more this finger's going to heal. So I gotta stay that boulder on my course.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. Okay. So boulder on course. Your boulder took you to music. Can you
Yeah.
share? So, by the way, Marisa has, if you guys seriously go check out her podcast, Incandescent, because she has like minute meditations. She actually writes, if you want, music that's written for you to use for intros for podcasts, to use for meditation. I know there's people in here who are in the healing space. You can reach out to Marisa. She has awesome experience in being able to do these things for you and make them for you. And I think she probably even has some that are already, you can even just
Pre-made,
buy
yeah.
pre-made. Yeah.
Mhm.
But so how did you get into this? Like, and how has that helped you? Yeah. Talk about it. Like, how's that helped you? And also like, how has that then helped you? Like, how have you been able to take this entire experience of your life, which has been for both of us a big deal in our lives, right? And make it into this positive thing that has helped you create an abundant, amazing experience of life.
Right. And I think I want to point out it's not always a positive thing, but it is more so than often. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I just don't want anyone listening. I think I've made it clear
No,
that I
I
still
get
have
it.
my
No.
downs, but I never want someone to think, oh, like it goes away, then you're perfect. But but when
Just laugh
I
about that
was,
right now.
because then like what growth would we have also?
Again,
Right?
just
Like
human. Again, we're just human.
we're
Like
human.
regardless of any mental health issues, we are
So true.
human.
So true. But when I was a kid, like songwriting was my therapy, especially because I felt like I had to hide how I felt. I would get everything out in music. And I, like, my senior project was performing a concert of original songs I had written. I cared so deeply about music and performing, but a lot of the feedback I got was like, you're a great songwriter, but you're really not a great singer. Like maybe just like focus on songwriting, but then also like maybe don't focus on it and just let it be a hobby. Like, no one makes it. This fun message we get when we're kids: dream big, but not too big because you're gonna fail. So like I was just surrounded by that message. And so I was like, okay, fine. It's my greatest passion in life, but I'll just ignore it and do the right thing, quote unquote, and go to
And end up in
college.
depression, people. This is a bad idea. Bad, bad, bad. Do not listen to those people.
So not only did I ignore my passion of music, I mean, I would play, the odd show here and there at a bar or something, but it wasn't a big part of my life, let alone my career like it is now. And I even got to the point where I was in a relationship with a musician, and he never heard a song that I wrote for the whole, I think we were together like almost 2 years. Like and I supported him and like lost sight of who I was completely for other reasons too. Like I was still heavily medicated at this point and not uh had very little things figured out. And I ignored music. And finally, when I reached that point where I was looking at, all right, I'm not going to live at the mercy of my moods. I'm not going to live at the mercy of my meds. What do I need to do to live a different path? Part of that was listen to your desires. Like there's a reason that you have them. And when we don't listen to them, we feel a lot more pain. If we're like, oh, yeah, I hear you, desire, but you're just going to have to wait. That ages us. That causes, or at least me personally, causes so much extra pain. And at this point in my life, I know that if I'm going to live well with this, I can't do anything that's going to be welcoming in extra pain. Like watching something on TV that I know is only going to make me feel worse, or like going into like if it's not necessary, why invite that in? And the same goes with music for me, because that was my passion, and ignoring it just brought pain. So I started getting back into it with no inkling that it could ever do anything besides just make me happy to play. And yeah, it's pretty amazing to now know that it was on one of the number one shows on Netflix.
It's amazing. And there was another, didn't you have something recently with some, I can't remember who it was that you were on her ad?
Oh, Rebel Wilson was in an Ollie ad that I used.
Yeah, that's right. The Ollie ad. That's amazing. But it was with Rebel Wilson. That's true. That's right.
I love Rebel Wilson. I'm sure she has no idea who I am, but my music was in the background of an ad she acted in. So that feels incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And so how has this helped you to take this, I think something that can be incredibly debilitating for people. And it was for me. It was for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, debilitating. Yeah. I got fired because of it from a job.
I was like, last year when I started down the path, I was like, man, I know these things in my head. Like, why am I having so much trouble doing the thing I know so well? Like, this is what I help other people with. Why am I not able to shift through some of these things? Oh, that's why. Right. Got it. So how have you taken that and turned it into like this, like the manifestation part, right? How have you used this and the emotional intensity, just talking about that, like the emotional intensity and strategies to live with it? Not only that, but to thrive and create manifestation with it.
So it's interesting because this answer is actually evolving right now, partially because of my finger. But for me, I'm not using it like I used to. So the initial answer was every time I felt a lower emotion to then get clarity on, okay, well, what desire does that have for you? I have a 7-part journaling practice that I do.
Oh yeah, you have a journal on this, don't you?
I do have a journal on Amazon. Yeah, for like anytime you have a lower emotion, what to do with it to shift it.
What's it called?
The Fun Journal, FUN, for feelings under neutral. And I actually think I have unworthiness listed twice for emotions, and I need to fix that typo. But it's like so fitting, like how many of us feel that too, like doubly. Like when we feel that, I'm like, maybe I won't change that.
Don't change it. No,
I haven't, because it feels like it can need to be circled twice sometimes. But it starts by just welcoming the emotions into the conversation. Welcome them in without shaming them, right? Like, we're already feeling bad. Why make ourselves feel worse? Just like, okay, you're already part of me. Come on out. What do you got going on? And I think that's something else too. Like, we treat the emotions like they're not part of us. Like, oh, how dare you thought, how dare you, whatever. It's like, no, this came from us. So we might as well love it and respect it and work with it instead of running away from it or working against it. So the next step would be to get clear on, okay, I'm jumping forward. The next few steps would be to get clear on, okay, if I'm afraid that my recording I'm working on right now isn't going to come out that great, then I must have a strong desire for a song that's going to uplift people around the world. And then I just focus on that desire. I'm like, thank you, anxiety, for helping me gain clarity on this really awesome desire. And then every time I feel the anxiety moving forward, I go, thank you. And I go right back to the desire, because that's all it is. It's the rumble strip saying, hey, go back to the road. And the road is those beautiful outcomes. And so then I would focus on those beautiful outcomes and use my emotional intensity to feel them in my body, where this is evolving now, and to feel it like it's happening now, and to just live there as often as I can throughout the day. Every time an emotion below neutral would pop up, I'd be like, oh, thank you, shift into the good feeling and feel that as long as intensely as I could. But now with this whole thing with balance, I'm realizing if I just stay in like a really, like, just generally happy, chill feeling,
like a neutral feeling,
I don't need, but like, yeah, neutral, but like content, neutral, like content, a little above. Yeah. Then things just unfold, and I don't have to worry about, like, the universe already has my order. The second I have the desire, it is there in the non-physical, ready for me to line up with it. And as long as I don't do the thing that slows me down, like focusing on my fears and anxieties, and I'm just like chill and trusting and knowing it's working out, then I can stay that boulder on the path without going too far into the intensity of like, oh, this feeling feels so good. Oh, because really how I want to feel isn't that anyway. How I want to feel is centered and like it's just all working out. So that's what I'm currently using. It's not even emotional intensity for at this point. It's like I had to know those two so that I could discover what
The middle.
the absence of them is. Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I know years ago, I had a mentor who once said to me, this was, it was quite a few years, maybe 4 years ago. And she said to me, she's like, Carrie, even when you're in ecstatic dance, right? Which is literally designed for ecstasy, right? But even when you're at a place like ecstatic dance, how can you still be neutral? And not neutral like we're like avoiding, because that can also feel like neutral, but like neutral, like I can actually just be present in myself and have peace within.
Present.
And also know that I am in ecstasy, but
Yeah.
my body doesn't go, ah! Right?
Right.
Because the ecstasy can feel like such an intense high, right? And so that, and it's like I think and I get, like
That's so
in
good.
any type of emotional intensity, and I look at this, and I love that you said this, because I look at things like The Secret or like the law of attraction type stuff, and so many people are like, go be in the vibration, but people take that to exactly that, like the high emotion. But if we're in these highs, has to come a low. Like our bodies do this, like it will swing if we cannot find somewhere for our bodies to be like, it's okay for me to actually know that I am in ecstasy right now without being like, oh my God, I'm exhausted with the energy that I'm putting out by being in ecstasy.
The more I'm intentional with emotions and vibrations, the more I experience, because yeah, the beginning of exploring law of attraction, I was trying to just feel the feeling, and I would have like it, like manic manifesting,
Yeah, totally. Manic manifestation.
But now it's like I'm getting more of the things I've always wanted. And when they come, the feeling of them coming doesn't feel like that manic excitement. It feels
Just
like,
of course.
yeah, of
Thank you.
course. Yeah, thank you. Right. Like, yep. And I would have thought years ago, if I got the things I have now, that I would have been like dancing and like, what? Oh my God. And like sometimes I still like, I'm like, oh, universe, you're amazing. And I'll like cry tears of appreciation. But that'll even just be for like a beautiful leaf, But like the things I always wanted now just feel like of courses, which is a completely different vibration than, oh my God, that's amazing.
Right. Because it's
And
just, of course, like,
and
of
it's
course, that's what it
sustainable.
gets to be. Yeah.
It's sustainable. And
Yeah. Like, I think of it like as our body is this channel, and the more clear the channel, the more that we can bring through from the high down to into the body. Like,
yeah.
I think this is one of the biggest problems with manifestation, is that most people sit and think and dream, and they put it out there. They put it outside of you, right?
And
But
it's
it's
already
not until it's already
you
outside.
have it.
It's already
The
there.
universe has your order. It's like one of my
Right.
favorite phrases. Like,
Universe has your, right? Like
you
going
don't
into a
have to tell it
restaurant.
what you want. You
No,
already know.
it
It already knows.
But like you still need to bring it into your body.
Mhm.
You still need to bring it into the physical reality. And if you leave it out there for the universe to take care of, half the time you probably just ignored what the universe literally landed in front of your face and didn't actually pick up, because it actually gave you it. But then if you bring it into your body and you give your body space to bring it through, and your body becomes the container for it to be held in, then that's when the epically magical manifestations, the of courseness, the everyday, like it just gets to be this way, happens. But it's because you've created the space in your body for it to land into your body. And when we run all of these emotions simultaneously up and down, all and around, we don't have the spaciousness in our bodies to hold it.
That's so true. I love the point that your friend or teacher made about neutrality, because what you're saying really, it's like hard to articulate if you haven't felt it. But what you're describing is also that feeling. It's like that spacious feeling of connecting with the fullness of who you are and feeling that energy within and around you, and how that it's like you're a home. Yeah, like you've said the word vessel. That's really it's I don't know how to articulate the feeling, but you are describing it much better than I am. And I
No, we're both describing it. It's, and I think it's something that people just, enough work with your emotions, enough work with body, and enough work with embodiment, it just becomes something. And I know for me, like you said, I love how you actually described, like, there's the bulldozer path and then there's the deer path, right? So for a long time it was the deer path, and now I'm like, wait a minute, I think, and even just more recently, right? I actually did a podcast a few weeks ago. It's on the podcast already, about a Cambo journey that I just did about a month ago. And one of the biggest lessons for me in this Cambo journey, I actually was in 2 days, like out of 3 days. Cambo can be quite a purgative thing and be quite an intense, like it's pretty intense for most people to go through. And when they put the Cambo on, which is a frog poison, onto myself, for 2 days of it, I went into complete peace. And I was like, the thoughts that went through me were like, oh my gosh, I have this poison that's running through me that's for healing, right? I'm not poisoning myself, people, because you didn't hear the whole story otherwise, right? That's for healing. And I feel at peace. So I'm like, if I can have my body feel at peace in this moment, where else can I feel at peace?
Right.
When the world is in chaos, can my body feel at peace? When all of my emotions are going crazy, can I still feel at peace? Because all of that really is toxicity, right? Like when it's all like going crazy and we're just taking it all in, like it can be, and especially because half the time the emotions I'm feeling are not mine anyway. They're like, this person, that person, this person, da, 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 da. And we feel, especially as empaths, because I'm sure that you can relate to that one too, right?
My
Empaths
human
that are
design
listening.
is an emotional, open, undefined center.
I am an undefined center and emotional as well. And I live with some very strong, defined emotional centers.
Me too.
And I'm like,
all my life, my best friends and family.
my husband was just talking to me about changing his schedule. And I was like, I really like you being out of the house for 2 days, because he's got the closed emotional center. I'm like, I need my space from people who I don't want to feel people today.
It's so much easier to take care of myself having space every day to myself. Like I've been,
Like,
there's so much
straight to
less
self.
steps I have to do. Yeah.
Like, and he's like, I could just listen downstairs in the basement. I'm like, no. No,
Build him
you're home. You can sit in the
house.
car outside down the block, nowhere near me. But we're learning. I was really proud of myself for stating that, because I was like, this is what keeps me sane, is being able to have a place where I don't have to feel other people all the time, and I can come home to feel myself. Like, what do I feel like if I'm not feeling everybody else, and I'm not taking everybody's emotions on, and I can just be me? Okay, this is the natural place I can live in. And if I can live in this here, I can also live in this while everybody else is around, or find ways to decompress throughout the day to make sure that I'm not. But like in the meantime, it can be a really toxic experience, and not necessarily, I mean, it can be happiness. It's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. I say that toxicity, but like it's other stuff that's entering our field that isn't our own.
Yep.
Right. And so if we can do that at any given point in time, I think that becomes like the epicness to me of where the more and more and more that I drop into this, the more amazingly I am looked after.
Yes.
The
Reverence,
more abundant I
self-reverence.
am looked after in all fucking ways.
The word that I've been hearing lately is revered. Like when I revere myself, I am revered. And I feel that.
Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever. Okay.
I know.
But I know we have to go. I know the time's up. I know you have to go. I have to get going. I actually have, for those of you who are listening in, I have my last call for my new Wealth from Crypto experience, which is my DeFi training that I'm doing.
Woohoo.
So we are talking today about inheritance planning for crypto. Dun, dun, dun.
So cool.
Sounds a little bit boring, but it's really freaking important if you want people to know actually how to find your money.
Yeah.
Very important.
Seems important.
It seems important. So I'm about to wrap up to go and do that today. But please, Marisa, like, let us know if there's anything you want to share as like a final wrap up of this, and then let everybody know where they find you, how they can reach out, how they can get journals, how they can get more music meditation from you, all the things, because you're such an amazing, amazing person. Just go and meet Marisa, period. End of story.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Back at you. Thank you. I think the final wrap up I want to make sure that I really hit home is that no emotion is bad. Nothing we feel is bad. There's nothing wrong with us for feeling anything. And that messaging that we've received is just that. It's just some phony messaging we've picked up. No big deal. In the future, if I could encourage anything, it would be that you now, as a listener, hear your emotion or feel your emotion, hear that voice in your head. And instead of going, what can I do to ignore this? How can I, shut up, you, or whatever we do. Instead of doing that, be like, hey, dear darling, welcome to the table. And identify that it probably is something from like when you were 7 that really hurt you and you never got to process, and love and hold that version of you. And that way it can escape. It can not escape, but it can kind of process, move through you. And now every time in the future that you feel it, it now just becomes this like, oh, how cute. Like it's coming back up. No big deal. Dear darling, let's look at the truth. And use that fear to get more clear on the loving desires. And that's all it is. It's just rumble strips keeping us on track. And I have so many resources for free. I have like a whole year-long free meditation superhero program so you can feel like a superhero with your emotional intensity. So just marisaimon.com, MARISAIMON.com.
Awesome. And your podcast is Incandescent, so make sure and go and like that, subscribe to that, have fun listening into that. She does meditations and all sorts of things on there all the time. And I love that there's like a minute one if you want to have a minute one. There's seasonal ones. There's sometimes longer ones. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. So go and check that out. Thank you, my dear. Thank you,
Carrie.
This has been an absolute
well worth
pleasure.
the wait.
It was well worth the wait.
Everything in perfect timing.
Always,
Can't get it wrong.
Never. Thank you for all that you be, all that you are doing in this world. Thank you for helping people to live with emotional intensity in the most phenomenal way and turn it into a gift. You are a gift to the planet. And I have had an absolute pleasure being on the call with you today.
Me too. Back at you, Carrie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Everyone else, we'll see you next week on the next podcast episode. Until then, have a great week. I want to give you a quick message before we get back into this episode. On this show, we are talking all about raising your vibes and helping you create the wealth and life you desire. One of my all-time favorite tools to support you in this work is the Healy. Healy is a quantum vibrational healing tool that with a couple touches of a button has you clearing your energy and raising your vibes. Honestly, there's not really much easier in the world that you can do to raise your vibes. It has been a massive part of my transformation, as well as thousands of others. Truthfully, this podcast probably wouldn't be here without it. If you have pain, sleep issues, headaches, hormonal stuff, food sensitivities, stress, anxiety, depression, the list goes on. I cannot recommend checking this out enough. Medical disclaimer here. This does not treat or cure anything. If you are curious to find out more, please email me at carrie@carrienorley.com. I'm sure that you will be happy that you did. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you love what you heard, please help us get this message out to more people, because together we rise. Please review it, subscribe to the show, and share on social media. When you share, please tag me. On Insta, I'm at Carrie Norley, and on Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Carrie Norley 1, or Carrie Kaplan Norley is my official name there. Please come and connect with me on social media and say hello. I love hearing from my listeners. And thank you so much for your support. I'm so excited to help you bring in the new wealth.